Stories from the Trail is brought to you by listeners like you. Head on over to patreon.com/storiesfromthetrail to find out how, for as little as $1, you can support the show you love. Or consider sponsoring entire episodes by joining at the Triple Crown level. Maybe you're a gear company, just started your own YouTube channel, maybe you just want to say happy birthday to your wife. Getting your message out to thousands of like-minded outdoor enthusiasts and hikers from around the world is just one of many perks that come with joining our Patreon at the Triple Crowner level. This particular episode is brought to you by Triple Crowner Daniel Pitts. Daniel doesn't run a gear company, have a YouTube channel, and as far as I know, his wife's birthday is not coming up anytime soon. So for this episode, we let Daniel introduce our guest. Let's get into it.
What is the meaning of life? The meaning of life is to be cool, popular, and have friends. Maybe that's shallow, but that's the way it is. And you need to get over it. Today on the show, Gary and Megan are going to be talking to a guy who makes a little bit of those dreams come true. His name is Matthew Odie Norman. Here it's a Hiker Yearbook. You know how you be cool? You get a lot of people to sign your yearbook. That means you're popular. Isn't that the meaning of life? This is Stories from the Trail.
Hello.
Oh, wow. You picked up on the first ring.
How are you doing?
Excellent. How are you?
I'm good.
Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you perfect.
Oh, good. All right. I always like to ask because you're hearing me through my phone, but I'm also talking into a microphone. So I'm trying to manage two things at once here. And just to make things even more difficult, we're going to add Megan to the call.
Awesome.
Hello.
We are geographically diverse.
Yeah. What he said.
I'm in Maine, you're in Asheville, and he's where?
Actually,
I'm not in Maine. I'm in New Hampshire.
Oh, well, I'm in Maine.
I was on the border of Maine. I was in Gorham until today.
I was just, you were just there.
I was just there, like this morning. Like I woke up in Gorham this morning. And now I'm here. Yeah, exactly.
This far in, Odie is already a better interviewer than either of us. He's asked the only meaningful questions so far.
Ooh. Well, I'm preoccupied. Right?
Are you really?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm actually popping a blood blister right now. It took me a really long time to find my needle. So that's why I had planned on doing it before, but, cooking took a little bit long, and then couldn't find my needle. But it's cool.
Well, I hope you're not planning to cook with the same needle that you're lancing your toe with.
I don't cook with needles.
Oh, I guess not then.
I only cook with needles for my enemies. It's just been a long time since I've had a blood blister, so I didn't know where my needles were.
She only does that around Halloween.
Yeah, exactly.
Perfect. Yeah. So Odie, you're in Maine.
I am. I'm in Maine.
Yeah. What are you doing in Maine, man? Why are you in Maine right now?
I am in Maine right now, hiking around to get the southbound bubble is actually right in this area. They're just finishing Maine right about now, so I'm out here to meet as many southbounders as possible. And I'm staying at a place called The Cabin, Honey and Bear's place, and they're allowing me to park my school bus, which is really nice because it's hard to hike with the school bus.
Yeah, the school bus is not exactly ultralight.
Yeah.
A lot of people are trying to get their packs below 20 pounds, but I increased mine by about 16,000 pounds, and I'm happy with it.
So, you just got there yesterday too, didn't you?
Yes.
So it's been kind of a crazy week for you. I've been following you on Facebook, and you've covered a lot of ground in a short amount of time.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's been a adventure to say the least. Like, you know the old saying when it comes to hiking, if you don't have a lot of money, go fast.
I like it.
So I use the same concept with when driving the school bus up, but I don't give shuttles or anything like that. I give rides to hikers to and from trailhead. Mostly just hang out with hikers because, see, I'm a hiker, so I'm just out here hiking. And the school bus is a wonderful tool to use, but it's not a shuttle vehicle or anything like that. It's just more my mobile home.
It is your home. I've seen the inside of this thing. Megan, have you seen the cabin?
Yes, we've both seen the inside of the school bus.
I did it all up in cedar, and I got cedar planks on the ceiling, which most people really like. And then I have this thing on the walls that looks like fake brick. Well, it looks like real brick, but it's fake brick, and kind of like a cabiny feel. And then my couch is a futon, so that's where I sleep. But then I put a plastic sheet over the couch during the day because hikers are disgusting.
Oh yeah.
You count yourself among them? Are you
Yes,
disgusted by yourself, Odie?
Every now and again, I question, should I be going in this restaurant right now?
So it is Sunday, which means that you are...
Is it Sunday?
Yeah, and I think that means you are less than 48 hours away from your weekly shower. Is that correct?
Shower day. Shower day is Tuesday.
Yeah.
Very much looking forward to shower day. There is a hiker family out here right now. They're a family of 8. It's a husband and wife and their 6 children, ranging in age from 2 all the way to 16. Well, actually, not even quite 2. And
Wow.
So I was able to help them slack pack today 10 miles of southern Maine. And then we came back, and they were heading into the hostel, so I grabbed my clothes as quickly as possible and ran straight to the shower. And I was about 3rd in line, so I stepped back out of line.
So
There's always a line.
So what you're saying is you're sitting there soaking wet, just not from.
Well, I put on my clean clothes. We're gonna call that good enough.
But I talked to Megan. Was it yesterday? I was talking to you, and you were at the hostel.
Yeah, I was at Rattle River Hostel.
Oh, say
Rattle
that.
River.
Yeah, say that.
Rattle River. That's right.
Yeah, Guardian of the Vortex is running that place.
Yeah, can you
He
repeat
is
that?
wonderful.
I didn't get that. Can you repeat that? Where were you?
Guardian of the Vortex is her. She was at Rattle River.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was at Rattle River.
Rattle? Are you saying Rattle
Vortex?
River?
Rattle River.
Okay. I don't know that one.
Formerly known as White Mountains Lodge and Hostel.
Oh, I didn't
Right.
know they changed the name. Okay.
They
Yes.
changed the name. It's a very interesting story behind that. Marnie was the one that started White Mountain Hostel, and when she went in to get her business license and everything like that, they make sure that there's no one in the county that has the same name. When you apply for the name. Well, unfortunately, there was a hostel less than 20 miles, I want to say, from her, but it was in a different county, and it had the name White Mountain Hostel. So it was very confusing. They were getting each other's resupplies, and hikers were getting confused, and especially the ones with the cars, because they would say navigate to White River Hostel, and it may or may not. There's a 50% chance as to which one it was going to choose for you.
Yep.
So when Guardian took over, he changed it to it's White Mountain Rattle River Hostel. In order to eliminate that confusion. But it's Rattle River that actually runs straight through his property. And this hostel is on the Appalachian Trail. And I was just talking to a hiker that was on trail in 2014 who is right now doing the Appalachian Trail corridor, because, the trail itself is 2 feet wide, but there's a corridor that's 1,000 feet. So Rattle River's property is actually in the corridor. So he's under an agreement to not do anything with this property, and they're going to go through there and redefine the lines to make sure that everyone's, doing what they're supposed to be doing, and that Rattle River Hostel isn't encroaching at all, which they don't want to be. They're welcoming and saying, please come in and tell us exactly where the line is, what we can and can't do, because the corridor is very important.
Mm.
So he actually technically owns a piece of the Appalachian Trail.
That is awesome. How cool
The
is
trail literally goes right past the driveway, like
Yes.
right at his doorstep.
Yeah, and the reason I brought that up is because I said I was talking to Megan yesterday. She was at the hostel. She was doing her laundry, and we're talking to you. You're in line for the shower, and everybody's doing all these cool hostel things, and I'm just sitting here in my office in my underwear drinking a beer.
Oh, well. Is it cotton underwear?
Yeah.
No. Hey, you'll appreciate this. I still to this day wear Marine Corps silkies.
Good.
Yeah.
You have the legs for it.
It's true. I have an even number of legs, so the shorts fit me perfectly.
If you want more information, go ahead and go to Reddit. Gary, how do they find that?
Oh,
on Reddit?
that picture, we've talked about that a million times. If you just
we
Google
have already?
if you just
never
Google
mind.
my name, one of the first things you'll see is me in my underwear, which I don't recommend doing. But, no, I mean they're running shorts. I hiked in them. I did the whole trail in. I mean, I wore other like now. I wore other things on top of them. I'm in my underwear, but I'm also wearing other things. I'm in a chicken suit. No.
My 14-year-old sister thinks that I'm famous because you can Google me. She likes to show her classmates. She's like, "Yeah, Google my brother. He's on the internet."
That's a
Oh, that's cute.
that's a fair metric, I think.
I'll pick her up every now and again when I'm back home in my school bus from her school, and she just thinks that's the biggest thing.
So, as you probably figured out, have you listened to our show before?
I have.
Oh, okay. All right. So then we just jump right into things, and we've had the red light has been on since I called you. So.
Oh, good.
Yeah, all of this is.
We just talked.
All of this is on the record.
Is that part about my rash? I mean, you can take that out.
Okay, so Megan's got a blood blister. I actually do have a rash. I so rarely get poison ivy, and
oh no.
Yeah, like maybe once every 2 or 3 years I'll get it, and I got it. In fact,
more than likely you're going around poison ivy once every 2 or 3 years.
Well, yeah, I'm doing that, but I'm also around it on pretty much a daily basis.
Oh no.
Yeah, the fence in our front yard is just covered with this stuff, and so are the trees. And I mean, we're way out in the middle of nowhere, so it's.
Look for jewelweed. When I was at the Troutville Trail Days Festival, they had a edible plants hike the ATC put on, and of course I attended that and found out that jewelweed, it grows around poison ivy, and that's one of the best things to put on poison ivy. And the reason it's called I don't know if this is the reason it's called jewelweed, but when water touches the leaves of jewelweed, it beads up and it looks like little jewels and it runs right off. It's almost as if the leaves are waterproof, but they look like little jewels just sitting on top of the leaves.
And
interesting.
And the flowers are especially cool too.
I've never seen the flowers. I was just shown these.
Oh my goodness,
this is new to me.
Yeah, they're actually famous for the flowers, and well, maybe not up in Maine, but down here the jewelweed is actually just starting to flower.
Oh my goodness! I just Googled it. We used to call those snapdragons because the little seed things snap when you pinch them. I don't know what the dragon part came in. Maybe the flower.
It's kind of shaped like a dragon's head.
Yeah, but that's what colloquially I don't know. As a kid, I would call it a snapdragon.
We always called them touch me knots because the flower and the seed pod are very close to one another, and it's tightly coiled. And if you just like Megan, you said, like you just pinch them a little bit, like just ever so lightly, like if you were not trying to crush it, just give it a little tiny squeeze, and it almost explodes in your fingers, and it sends the seeds flying. And,
I've seen these. I've seen this on other plants. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the same plant as jewelweed.
Oh. Yeah. Learning more and more.
And I just Googled snapdragons, and turns out it's a completely different flower. So, my childhood was a lie.
Yeah, this particular case of poison ivy, though, actually, I went to the doctor and got a prescription cream for it. I've got some kind of a steroid-based cream that I'm rubbing on just my left arm, and it is jacked right now.
Is it? Your left arm's getting really muscular?
No, it's it's getting angry.
Oh my God.
Angry left arm. It's actually kind of amazing because I had this giant red spot on my arm that was roughly the same shape and size as Delaware, and just bright red. And man, within 3 days, just down to, just looks like normal skin again, or is normal.
Oh, do you know what prickly heat is?
So I don't.
It comes from bad hygiene. Now, that's what being a hiker is bad hygiene.
Yeah.
But it's where the salt crystals from the sweat, and it usually happens where your backpack's rubbing on your skin. The salt crystals will actually get into your pores, and then when your body temperature heats up and you would naturally sweat, the salt is actually blocking the sweat pores, and it feels like 1,000 needles just going into your skin. And I was hiking at night, actually, and this happened to me. It was so bad. I ripped my backpack off and I threw it on the ground, and I'm like grabbing at my back, like, oh my God, what's going on? And then once I had calmed down and got my blood pressure down, it went away. And I was like, okay, maybe that was nothing. So then I pick up my backpack and I start hiking, and 10 minutes later, it's just like, oh my God, I'm through hiking. So anyway, I
through
reasoned.
Hiking.
So, I try to get that joke in there wherever I can,
You're good at that.
But so I reasoned that this was only happening when my body temperature went up and I would be sweating. My back would just catch on fire, and then when I calmed down, it wouldn't. So I said, okay, there's something going on, and I jumped in the creek and I grabbed handfuls of sand, and I'm just like exfoliating my back.
Oh.
And it worked. And then, so I'm thinking, like, oh, something's horribly wrong with me and everything. And then after Google and stuff, I realized that it was simply poor hygiene. So that's why I increased my showers. Yeah. So, and that's why I shower once a week now, at least, because of that.
You got to get that weekly shower in.
Yeah, I'm trying. You can't skip too many of those in a row.
Yeah, I think a heat rash similar to that is pretty common among the dirty hikers that are in the woods. If you don't just at least rinse the sweat off regularly.
Mm-hmm.
But what hikers really have time to just jump in every single stream? And you can't really do that anyways.
No, but what I like to do with the hikers is I call it hiker wash. And over the last few years of traveling the trail, and I call myself like a hiker assist, but over the years I've traveled the trail, and I've found swimming holes throughout the places that hikers generally wouldn't go to, because they're 5 or 6 miles away from the trail. But
right,
but I have a school bus, so I'll throw 4 or 5 hikers in there, and we'll go down to different water sources, different jumps, rope swings, canoe trips, things like that, and I call it a hiker wash. And I feel like I'm doing the towns a favor,
Yeah. That's a really good idea too, to take them away from the trail where people are drinking the water and bring them to designated, like, actual, like, hey, there's a tire swing here. This is where people swim. This is a swimming area.
And I tell them, don't look the locals in the eyes. It freaks them out, that kind of thing. Try to blend in as best you can.
No sudden movements. Yeah, but okay, so here, that reminds me of your... Okay, so your thing about the weekly shower and, it's Tuesday, time to shower, that falls under a category of things that that I like to call Odieisms. And there's Odieisms, and there's also inspirational Odieisms. And you've got to admit you're known for this, and I think you probably play to it a little bit. One of my favorites that I've seen you say this a couple of times online or in person is, correct me if I'm going to mangle this. You say, "I started with nothing and I've got most of it left."
I still have most of it left.
Yeah.
Yes. The dream of the Hiker Yearbook came from after my hike in 2013. I wanted to reconnect to hikers that I'd met and formed deep relationships with, but I only knew them by the name of Squirrel and Rabbit and Twinkle Toes and Dump Truck. So
Dump Truck.
that was one of the ones that my mom made fun of me for. She said, my son has friends named Dump Truck.
And how many months old is your son?
So
400 and sorry, go ahead.
So where was I going with this? So yeah, I wanted a way for hikers to reconnect after the trail, and there was nothing there. There was no other than actually going physically to the ATC and looking at their historical books where they print out the photos. One at a time. There was that, but there was nothing else. And I said, well, this has to be done. And at that point, I had nothing. I just completed a through hike. I was living in my parents' basement, or not basement, but garage, but either way. I had nothing. And I called a couple friends and said, hey, I have this wonderful idea. I think that we could reconnect hikers after the trail and make a positive impact on the world. But it was going back and forth in my mind on if I should do this or not. And so there was a lady at this coffee shop in Huntsville, this good friend of mine, and she says to me, she's like, well, what do you have right now that you're worried of losing? And I said, nothing. And she said, well, then you're good. So
nothing but up from here.
Right. And one of the things I've always considered myself is to be a writer. And I really like the shortliners. Like I say things like, people think that I'm falling, but I'm actually learning to fly.
You need to make some posters, man.
Hiker's Hike has been, I think, one of the most favorite ones because it's simple. It's a call to action. It's what we are. It's what we do. So it's just very simple. Hiker's Hike.
It's kind of your rallying cry.
Yeah, I love that one. The trail is hard. It has its ups and it has its downs, and you got your physical, your mental, your spiritual, and you realize through the journey of the trail that it's not about getting to that high. You can't spend your time on the Appalachian Trail trying just to get to that high, because if you do, you're going to miss the valley and you're going to miss the way up and you're going to miss all the views and all the animals and things like that if all you're focused on is just trying to get to the high. So it's taking a step back and living in the moment and saying, okay, this is a low moment, but I'm going to make it a great low moment. Right now I'm heading back up. Right now I'm heading back down. Whatever's happening, you can choose to be in a state of mind, because the summits and the valleys are going to keep coming as long as you keep going.
That's true.
So this is why Odie stands on top of his bus at Trail Days every year and gives a rallying speech to how many hundreds of hikers were gathered around you this year. Like shit like that just 400. Rolls off your you silver tongued devil. I don't know how. You're good, man. You're good.
I could do my Trail Days speech if you want. It's 3 minutes long. If you want to edit it out later, you can.
What I might do is try to find some footage of it online so I can get like the crowd cheering in the background and get something like that.
Yeah.
Now I forgot what I was going to say. Crap. Hang on. You guys talk about something while I think. Hold on.
So, how you doing?
Pretty sure I recorded your speech. I wonder if maybe.
Oh, that's right. You might have the sound on that.
Well, it wasn't my device. It was Gary's device, but it was my first time using this device, so it's entirely possible that I didn't actually record anything.
Okay.
It's entirely possible I didn't know what I was doing, even though I thought I knew what I was doing.
Oh,
very real possibility there.
I think
that's totally fine.
Yeah, I think we actually do have that audio, and I can find it.
But
see? I think it's incomplete. Like you only got like the first couple minutes, but we'll just do a sample. But I remember what I was going to say now. I remembered.
Yes.
Odie, you said you said for this year that you took a public speaking class or voice lessons or something. Did you really do that?
I did. I really studied on YouTube and other sources, but I really studied a lot of breathing techniques and yelling, because the trail history speech that I give at Trail Days, that's my moment. Like I love that, because I truly feel in my spirit that if I can explain in a poetic, simple form what it was that created and maintained and continues today the Appalachian Trail, if they knew the history, then they would have respect. So the second Trail Days actually the first Trail Days was we were just trying to make a yearbook, but the second Trail Days we did a giveaway, and I called, 500 dealers or gear companies and said, hey, please give me stuff to give away. And about 30 or 40 of the 500, gave some pretty good stuff. So we called the giveaway, and I was standing there on top of the bus, and I realized that I had, 300 to 500 current on-trail Appalachian Trail thru hikers in front of me. There's nowhere else on the trail ever throughout the entire season that this occurs. All of the other giveaways at Trail Days, or anyone that's at Trail Days, if you come by their booth, you grab a ticket. It doesn't matter if you hiked last year, if you plan on hiking next year, it doesn't matter. But mine is specifically like, are you on trail this year? I want you gathered here. So I did the giveaway, and everyone turned around and they walked away. And I said, that was a missed opportunity. Like, that's the largest gathering of current on-trail hikers. They need to know something. And I spent a year. I studied, I wrote, I was like, I don't know what I'm going to say, but in that moment, I'm going to say 2 minutes of something that's hopefully going to change some hikes.
This is the largest gathering of Class 2018 thru hikers on trail anywhere. Let them hear you. About a month ago, I was walking on the trail and eating a candy bar, and I said, I wonder if I could give away 1,000 candy bars. I asked the Class 2017 and other hikers to send in candy bars. We got 1,400. Everyone will get one. Please give them their candy bars!
And I think the most important thing is the history. So I started writing my trail history speech, and I shortened it and shortened it and shortened it as much as I possibly could, and then filled in as much history as I could. And then on the third year, when we did the giveaway, we didn't tell anybody that they were going to get the speech. But when they all gathered for the giveaway, I started to give the speech. Someone wrote after the fact on their blog, they said, I came to the giveaway and I didn't win anything, but I really feel like I won a lot because I have no idea of the history. And, so everything I do as far as like reconnecting hikers, that's my driving force. But those 3 minutes are probably the most important minutes to me.
How much history of the trail did you know before you hiked it?
Oh, absolutely none. I only knew about the trail for 2 months before hiking it.
How about you, Megan?
I did a little bit of research, but more so on the trail itself and the experience, less so on the history. In fact, I think despite how many ALDA gatherings I have been to or ATC events, I think I honestly probably absorbed more of the history when Odie was speaking at Trail Days this year than I had in any of those lectures, just because it's more captivating than someone doing a slideshow presentation. To be perfectly honest, okay. Odie standing on top of a school bus like that with a bunch of hikers, like all excited to hear what he has to say, it's going to make me absorb the information a little bit more than something a little bit drier put out by one of the governing bodies or something where I have to read words on a slideshow or something.
Oh yeah, and that's where I went to get my knowledge. I called the ATC and I said, who's your historical go-to? And I was on the phone for 3-4 hours and I was reading different things, and there's so many places to pluck the information from. But I did all of that to prevent other people from having to. I could just kind of present it to them in such a way that they could retain it.
Yeah.
And it works too, because I just know that when these hikers, they hear of Benton Mackay and Earl Schaefer and Gene Espy and all these others, they hear what was done, how the CCC was responsible for the actual building of the trail when Myron Avery used CCC funds to complete the trail. All of these things, you start hearing these names, and then the answers are out there, at the ATC museum and stuff like that. But now when they go to these places, they already have that planted seed of these names and these numbers and when and where and how the trail came to be. And I think that their eyes open a little more to it. I've had hikers come up to me on trail after the fact, and they say, "Hey, can you give me that speech again? Because what were the years? It was 1921 that Benton MacKaye, he created the trail." And I said, "Well, no, he dreamed of the trail in 21. ATC was formed in 25. The trail was actually completed in 37. But there, that seed of respect of the history of the trail is planted in that moment. And for me to have that, it's just so humbling and so amazing that I have that moment,
I like to think of Benton MacKaye as the original American hippie.
he was an artist.
Didn't he actually call the shelters communes in his original draft for the trail?
Yeah, his original draft was to the Architects magazine, but he talked about a utopia in the woods, to where you would visit parts of the trail and learn about the local communities, and you would spend your entire life coming and learning throughout the entire Appalachian Mountains, the different cultures and techniques and foods and gardenings and things like that. Now, that was not the idea that was actually completed, but that was the
darn close.
That was the original vision. Yes, very, very close. The AMC huts is very close to what he imagined.
Okay.
And he also only wanted it to go to Mount Washington in the original idea, and then it pushed all the way to Katahdin.
Hey, you were just there.
Katahdin? Mount Washington, yes.
Yeah, both of you guys were just there.
I was just at Mount Washington myself.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
We both were, because the whites are great.
Love the whites.
Incredible.
Love the whites. So rewarding. The AMC does a great job maintaining those sections.
How much history do you include, or if at all, in the yearbook?
Now, that's where I consider myself a historian. Every other page in the yearbook, I do a spread. Last year was talking about how they're redoing the corridor. Like we spoke of before, the trail's 2 feet wide, but the corridor is 1,000 feet wide. Well, it actually hasn't been marked since the 70s. So right now there's a team working directly for the ATC. Now, this is not on trail, because the corridor is 1,000 feet wide. So they're basically 500 foot off trail, bushwhacking, looking for the original monuments, and remarking the section. So I did a whole spread explaining that, and putting information and how you would get a hold of these people. And then my business partner Danielle, she actually designed this beautiful map of the trail itself, and it shows where one Appalachian Trail Club starts and the other one stops, and how it's 31 trail clubs that complete the entire trail.
Oh, nice.
So that a hiker can just point to a section of trail and then follow the line and figure out which trail club they should join.
Oh, that's awesome. Nuclear, that's the word you're trying to get me to say, right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that's the wrong way to say it, but
that's why I'm having a hard time with it.
Good.
Launch the nuclear weapons.
Now sound a little more alarmed.
I don't know how to act.
Surprised.
Launch the nuclear weapons?
Perfect. Yeah. Oh no, we're still here. I'm listening.
Oh, I think my phone cut out though.
No, we're all still there. It was just like one of those moments where we were just kind of like letting it soak in, like
one of our silent moments.
Yeah. So
that's
Odie,
probably why your listeners listen. They're waiting for the silent moments.
The silent moments.
Yeah. Well, I write down a couple of questions before we start, but really most of the questions and most of the conversation we use is just stuff that comes off the top of our heads. And while you were talking, I was thinking about something that's not in my notes, and it made me want to ask you about just. I'm sure you've got more than we have time for, but can you think of off the top of your head just like one or two stories from people who have talked to you after getting their Hiker Yearbook, and how it helped them
reconnect with someone?
Oh, yes. I've heard some really good ones, and some sad ones. But there was one where these 5 hikers had gotten together because they got their books in the mail, and they met at one hiker's house, and the power went out. So they grabbed their headlamps, and they put their headlamps in the lantern, and then they went through the Hiker Yearbook by headlamp light, and and sat and did the stories. And one of the magical things about the book is, it's pictures of every hiker with their trail names, page after page, but hidden even from me are the stories that are in those names and those pictures. And my favorite thing to do is when a hiker from a previous year says, "Oh, can I look at the 2016 book?" And I was like, "Oh, this is Rock Hopper, and we were at a shelter one time and a tree fell, or this, and we saw a bear, and there was a moose," or what. But the stories just come to life, and they're all there. But you must have the memory to open the key to this, and so I call it the endless story. I put the book out. It's 160 pages, and it's full of about 2,000 hikers' photos and different full page spreads. But the stories that are in this book are countless. They're endless, and they could just go on forever. Each one with a different view, their view of the Appalachian Trail and the stories that are involved with it. One of the sad ones I'll touch on.
Oh, go ahead.
One of the sad ones that I'll touch on is there was a hiker, unfortunately, who passed away, and his sister grabbed the Hiker Yearbook, and he had marked his friends throughout the whole yearbook. He had marked the people that he knew. So she turned to the back and she went to the directory, and she sent all of them an email to let them know that he had unfortunately passed away. And without that there, other than just the ones that were on his Facebook or whatever else, she wouldn't have been able to reach out to. And that's a really hard thing, but that really touched me that even that's available for the hikers to reconnect even after a tragedy.
So I don't know if you already have something like this, or if it already exists, or maybe you're planning it. Maybe you've heard this before. Maybe I should just shut the hell up and stop telling you how to do your thing. But is there any place on like hikeryearbook.com or any kind of online community where people can go and share those stories?
I haven't really touched into the social media so much. I have my personal Facebook page, but Mark Zuckerberg told me that I can't have more than 5,000 friends.
No,
because I don't actually know. I've met every single one of my friends on Facebook, and then he's
Mark
like, "No,
Zuckerberg doesn't understand what
he doesn't
do.
get me. He just
doesn't get you.
He just doesn't get me." But so I'm limited at this 5,000 mark on social media, but I'm branching out. Unfortunately, I don't have the time to do the social media stuff because I'm out here in the experience of living it and listening for the historical stories. Earl Schaefer's grandniece is hiking this year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, isn't
Echo.
that cool?
Echo, right?
Echo is her name, yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
There was talk early on about her being Girl Schaefer, but she's hiking her own hike and she's doing it her own way.
Okay.
Good for her.
Yeah, so it's her name's Echo, and she's having a great time, from what I understand, and doing a great job. And she's still on trail. So it's not the same trail that her grandfather hiked. It's really not.
It's literally not. The start and the end is the northern end has always been Katahdin, right?
The northern end has always been Katahdin. However, southern Maine used to be on the lower grounds, and you would leave Gorham after the Whites. And it was 300 basically easy miles straight to Katahdin. And Earl Schaefer hiked 3 times, 1948, the first ever through hike, 1968, and 1998. And in 1998, he wrote a book called, I believe The Mountains Are Calling Me Back Home, or something close to that. Either way, 2/3 of this entire book written about his entire hike is complaining about that 150-mile section of trail where they had moved from the lower grounds to the higher grounds. He called it Impassable Trail, talking about saddlebacks of the Mahoosic Range and so on and so forth. But he really did not like this at all. But the trail changes, and the reason that the trail moved is because it's more protected when it's on the summits. You can't forest at the summits, you can't clear cut, things like that, and it's just better. It's better for the corridor to be up there, and it is passable, but it's not easy.
Right. Yeah. It kind of self limits the heavy foot traffic by its difficulty.
Right.
I
Warren Doyle.
remembered. Oh, go ahead. I want to hear about Warren Doyle.
Warren Doyle once said, "I never encourage anyone to hike the Appalachian Trail. I don't want to be responsible for their suffering."
That's something I can agree with that Warren Doyle said. Yeah.
Oh, did y'all hear about the kidnapping at the shelter this week?
Oh, what?
What?
Yeah, he slept most of the day. I guess he was really tired.
Oh God. Oh God.
See the kidnapping at the. Yeah.
Thank you for pulling us out of that tailspin.
That's like the hiker version of a dad joke.
Oh man.
That's good. I like that.
If we can get back to history for a second, you.
Oh, sorry, Gary. You wanted to stay on topic with this episode?
Not particularly, but.
What were we talking about again? Who are you people?
I'm not sure. Oh shit! Is this thing on? Do we need to redo all of this because none of it recorded? No, I'm just kidding.
I love your book, by the way.
Oh,
well,
thank
both
you.
of them.
Yeah, mine doesn't have any pictures in it.
Right, I noticed that.
Yeah.
I noticed that. See, pictures are worth 1,000 words, so you can actually get more words in if you don't use words.
How many hikers are in a typical hiker yearbook?
Last year we had 2,200 and some change.
So 1,000. If a picture is worth 1,000 words, and you had over 2,000 pictures,
2 billion? Is that 2 billion words?
I think that's 2 million. I think that's over 2 million pictures.
That's a lot of. Yeah, it's a lot.
1,000 times 1,000. No, it's got to be 1 billion.
All right, I'm counting the zeros here.
Megan,
1, 2, 3.
Google it.
Yeah, that's six. That's six.
It's a million. There's 6 zeros.
Yeah, 6 zeros. So that's 2 million words. So the Hiker Yearbook has more story to it than any George R.R. Martin novel.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And
series.
So Baltimore Jack had at one point more mileage than any other person, more through hikes and section hikes, and lived out his life on the trail. And he was actually a film critic for the Boston Globe. The last time that I ever saw him, I handed him the most recent yearbook. I had no idea that I was going to do a page on him the following year because of his passing, but he sat down, and I was in a hurry because I'm always in a hurry. Hikers are always in a hurry. And so he opened the book slowly, looked at the first page and then the second page, and he ran his fingers across, at one point I was wondering if he was just doing this because he knew that I was in a hurry. And he went through every page of the yearbook, and he closed the yearbook, and he said, you'll never make any money doing this, but don't you ever quit. And that was a big moment for me. Just knowing that someone that has more experience than any other person says this is worth doing, do it. Yeah. And then Pirate, he gave me another great compliment where he went through the book, and he did the exact opposite as Baltimore Jack. He grabbed the book from me and he flipped through every page with his thumb all the way to the back cover, and then he slams the book together and he hands it to me and he says, I've read a lot of books about the Appalachian Trail. Finally somebody got it right. Not a lot of words.
That's awesome. That's a good way to look at it. I was about to ask you about, we were going back to history.
Gary loves history.
Hey, you want some scandal?
Yeah, let's have some scandal.
Ooh.
Earl Schaefer never started at Mount Oglethorpe, which was the start of the Appalachian Trail. He started just north of there. And when he was leaving out of Damascus heading north, they were actually blasting to put in the Blue Ridge Parkway. Which is why Benton McKay and Myron Avery never spoke to each other again after a disagreement of them putting in the Blue Ridge Parkway. So admittedly so, by his own book, Walking the Spring, he admitted to taking a ride from a ranger. And what else would you do? They were blasting the trail at the time. So there are some that say Earl Schaefer did not hike the entire trail.
Oh, well.
There are
Yeah,
those
it's a little
carrots out
scandalous.
there.
Yeah, it's a little bit scandalous. So Gene Espy
Historical
may,
scandal. Wow.
yeah. I mean, it's written in his own book. These things.
Well, I've
So-
read Gene Espy's book, and he was. I think the word I would use to describe him was he was a rascal. He was always playing pranks on people and getting into stuff, and I wouldn't be surprised if he started that rumor about Earl Sheffer.
Oh, I wonder if he did. He's still alive. He could be starting this rumor.
All right, so I'm finally going to get to this question that I've been trying to ask you for like 10 minutes now. We were talking about history, and then we got sidebarred, and then we got sidebarred again. Hey, let's go down one more rabbit hole.
Okay.
So I know you went to the AT Museum recently. And
I did. I volunteered for a week there.
A whole week, yeah. So I want to hear. I want to hear more about that. Who'd you meet? What'd you do? What did you learn? Where'd you stay? I want to hear all about your AT Museum Odie exchange program.
The park itself got me written permission to park my bus on top of Piney Mountain. So I had the permission to park up there all week and live in my bus.
Tell us where that is for people who aren't familiar.
Pine Grove Furnace, which is the halfway point for the Appalachian Trail. It's where people do their half-gallon challenge, and then also the Appalachian Trail Museum, obviously, what we're talking about.
Right there in Pennsylvania.
Right there in Pennsylvania, Pine Grove Furnace, Pennsylvania. It was wonderful. I spent my first day reading everything that they had to offer and learning as much as I could about the different things. Did you know the original center point marker for the Appalachian Trail was stolen out of the stone?
Like recently?
Yeah, if you're heading north, it was just before, not recently now, but just before you get to Boiling Springs. There was a center point knob. Mm-hmm. So the center point knob, the plaque was pried out of the stone and disappeared, and nobody knew anything. So the plaque that's in there now is a remake. However, a farmer, while plowing his field a few years back, discovered the plaque in his field. He thought it was pretty cool, and he knew the trail came through the town and everything, and he was like, "Oh, well, this is neat." And he put it on his mantle. Well, he had told some people in the trail club. He said, "Hey, I found this plaque." They're like, "Oh, the stolen plaque of Center Point Knob." So
that sounds like the title of a Scooby-Doo episode.
It does.
So he very happily, of course, gave it over to the Maryland Appalachian Trail Club. So Maryland Appalachian Trail Club took possession of it, and then they, I'm sure they discussed, should we put it back in the stone, but there was already a remake marker there. But instead, they donated that plaque to the Appalachian Trail Museum. So sitting behind lock and key is the original Center Point Knob plaque for the Appalachian Trail at Pine Grove Furnace Appalachian Trail Museum.
Excellent.
I mean, just to go see that is incredible. And another cool thing that they have is the Earl Schaefer shelter. See, Earl Schaefer built about 3 shelters on the Appalachian Trail. And when he built shelters, he never put a floor in the bottom of the shelters. Earl Schaefer said, if you put floors in the bottom of the shelters, mice and disease and rodents and all these things will get up underneath and it'll be bad. And the Conservancy and all the clubs said, well, if we don't put a floor in, though, then you have to sleep with the mice and the disease and the trash. So we're going to put a floor in. Well, the Trail Club put a floor in one of his shelters, and it was called the Earl Schaefer shelter. Well, Earl Schaefer wrote a letter, and he said, you either remove that floor or my name.
Oh, my goodness.
They removed the floor. So when they reassembled it at the Appalachian Trail Museum, they tossed the floor aside and threw it away because this is the Earl Schaefer shelter, and it does not have a floor other than the concrete floor of the museum.
Cool.
Wow.
There's a bronze bust of Grandma Gatewood there, too, isn't there?
There is.
I don't know if it's bronze, but I know I saw it.
Wooden. It's wooden.
Oh, okay. I knew it was made of something. It was not ice. It was
Aren't
not an
there
ice
some
sculpture.
shoes there as well?
Grandma Gatewood shoes.
They were Grandma Gatewood shoes. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Mysteries at the Museum did a piece on her shoes because she wore those Keds, you know. She was the Keds shoes. Oh, were you not popular in high school?
No, I know what Keds are. It's just I can't believe I can't imagine hiking in Ked.
No.
Oh, I know. I can't imagine
just,
hiking
like,
at 62 years
Ked.
old with 8 children.
Yeah, that's a bit much.
I can't imagine hiking tomorrow with my bunions and my blisters. I don't have bunions and blisters.
With your, did you say bunions?
I
Gary?
did. I don't know what I'm talking about.
You have bunions now?
Grandma Gatewood, now she was a beast because her husband used to beat her up and some of the kids. And she didn't appreciate that. So she went down. Now, this, mind you, this was in the late 40s. She went down to the courthouse and she said, I'd like to file for a divorce. And then she went down to her husband and said, look, I'm filed for divorce. And then her husband beat the crap out of her. She called the cops. The cops showed up and arrested her for beating him. This is, yeah. And Grandma Gatewood said, I'll have no more of this.
Yeah.
And she walked away and literally walked away.
Good for her.
Yeah.
Good for Grandma Gatewood.
Yeah, every time her name comes up, there's just so much to say about Grandma Gatewood. That's a book worth reading, or even just Google Grandma Gatewood if you don't know who we're talking about. Her story is
even just reading just a quick article or something.
Mm-hmm.
Hey,
a quick little write up.
I recommend an article at the Trek.
Is there one in particular?
I realized as I was saying it that I probably should have had one ready to go, but just go to the Trek, use their really awesome search feature that Zach probably paid too much for, and type in Grandma Gatewood and see what you get. That's there you go. This episode is brought to you by thetrek.co.
We love you, Zach.
Yeah, you know Zach, right?
I know Zach.
Yeah, Zach's a cool guy. You I think your booths are pretty close to one another at Trail Days each year, aren't they? Or your bus and his booth?
We've ran into each other more on trail than anything, but I see him every year at Trail Days.
Hey, I want to know more about the bus. Tell me,
okay.
What year is it? What kind of engine you got in that thing? And, how much do the tires cost to replace? How many miles are on it? What kind of gas mileage do you get? How many people can you fit in it? What's it really smell like? And what's her name?
Oh, the name. It's called Figment the Bubble Catcher, because a figment can only be of your imagination. A figment is not a thing. A figment is only a thing in your imagination. So the bus came from my imagination, so therefore it is a figment in the real world. It is fully wrapped in cedar on the inside. It has a futon bed for me to sleep in and a cedar chest. Now, I wrapped it in cedar to help absorb the smell of the hikers. Didn't work. But it gets 8 miles to the gallon, and that's only if I'm going downhill with the engine turned off. The tires, when I first got the bus, it wasn't the greatest bus, but I bought it because it was so ugly. It was the ugliest thing I'd ever seen, and I said, there could be nothing else except for this bus. So I will make this beautiful, and I feel like I did. I put a brand new engine in it, rebuilt transmission. I rebuilt the suspension completely, the brake lines, everything was done as far as the brakes, and now it's basically a brand new vehicle. It's I pull into parking lots and everybody kind of looks over and says, "Oh, that thing's old." And I'm like, well, it's actually newer than yours.
It's the miles. It's the miles, not the years. Yeah. So we were talking about the bus. Odie, you and I have run into each other at so many different trail events, kickoffs, trail days, the ruck events, the gathering.
Southern Ruck, yeah.
Yeah, and we're always super busy when we see each other. I'm always trying to work a table. You're trying to, stand on a bus and yell at people. So like we always kind of see each other in passing. And one of my favorite things is when you and I went up to Tellico Gap. I think it was like 2 years ago for an Alda Ruck. And, you just dropped me off for a hike. And, we hung out in the car for a while. We were driving and talking and just hanging out. And it was a good time. And I'm glad we got to spend some time together. One of the things that we talked about in that conversation that really stuck with me, that I think kind of gets to the heart of who you are and what you do, is why the back of your bus, does it still say church bus?
Yes, it does. It still says church bus.
So you originally told me that you did that, mostly for safety reasons. I'm not making air quotes around safety either, but to kind of We'll go.
Yeah, it's a hippie bus. I mean, one thing I learned about my Navy my Navy experience was that perception is reality for people. And when you see a bus coming up and it's got a bunch of stickers on the back and it's got window shades in it and there's a bearded man at the helm, you get a lot of first impressions from that. So
yeah, now you have a mohawk too.
I do. I have a mohawk. I got a mohawk from Rob Bird, and he gives out hundreds of mohawks a year to hikers. And I didn't want a mohawk, but I was at Rob Bird's house, and he looks at me. He says, "Would you like a mohawk?" And I'm like, "Oh my God, you're Rob Bird. Of course I want a mohawk." So I have a mohawk.
Turn into it.
Yeah,
it's like meeting Bob Peoples and not moving a boulder.
Of course, you have to move a boulder when you meet Bob Peoples. That's part of it, or create a switchback.
So you get this crazy bearded guy with a mohawk sitting in the bus.
Yeah, so the back says church bus, and I bought it from a church. Now, I did intend on covering up the fact that it said church bus, but one day I was looking at it and I realized, you know what? This bus is on a spiritual journey. This is a church bus. No affiliation, but I definitely believe in God. I mean, I met them. They're incredible. So, I follow mostly Christianity and things of that nature as far as discipline, but I don't call myself a follower of any major religion. And I'm not like trying to spread a religion, but I am trying to spread love. And that's why I'm out here. And I feel like that's the basis of what is a church bus. It's because it's on a mission. It's out and it's doing something. It's trying to assist and help people, and it's trying to change attitudes and change perspectives and things like that. Now, the bus itself that belongs to all these churches, like that is a mission vehicle. And this bus, without a doubt, has a mission. It has a mission to spread love and understanding and togetherness. So for me to remove the word church bus, it didn't feel right. So I left it up there. And it does help me as far as when I go into these tiny little towns and Joe Sheriff looks over and says, "Oh, that's a hippie bus." Oh, never mind. It's a church bus.
Are you ordained? Are you able to marry people?
Oh, no.
I don't know why. For some reason, I had this impression that like you could conduct weddings. I don't know why. I don't know where I got that. I mean, you're sort of the captain of a little ship. You should. I don't know.
I should get ordained.
I think you can just like.
Why not?
There's.
On the bus.
I'm pretty sure you just fill out a form and pay $35.
If I get ordained, will you two get a divorce so that I can marry you two?
Wait, who do what now?
What? No.
Wait who are you talking about?
Aren't you married?
Not to each other.
What?
No.
Wait, who am I talking to?
You know this.
Wait a minute. No.
Wait, if you...
I thought... Well, now I don't know who I'm talking to.
Wait, hold on. Did you think you were talking to Katie this whole time?
Yes.
Oh, my God. This is beautiful.
And I even called her... I even said Megan, but I thought I was talking to Katie. Well, hi,
goodness.
Megan. How are you? Good to meet you.
I'm great, Odie.
Good.
Time, but it's okay.
Oh,
Yeah.
dude. Yeah.
Well, good. So you're married to other people.
Yeah. No, well,
I'm not.
Megan's married to her
sure.
career.
Uh-huh.
I'm married to myself.
I'm married to the trail.
Oh, my God.
All right, that's it. I'm out of the wedding business.
Oh, dude. Oh, I'm so glad that happened. That's hilarious.
Hi, Katie. If you're listening at home, love you very much.
She's gonna hear
Sorry.
this. She's in her car right now, listening to us like 3 days later.
Good.
Hello, Katie from the future.
Hi, Katie from the future.
Yeah. No,
I know what the future's like.
Yeah, you know who Megan is, right? Megan is Voldemort from well, I was gonna say from the book, like from my life, from the hike that we did together in 2014. That's who you've been talking to this whole time.
Megan, hi.
Yeah, we
Big fan.
we had a gathering in 20.
Odie, there was some hint on your Facebook recently about you maybe doing the PCT, or did I imagine that?
No, I'm very much about to go attempt a Hiker Yearbook on the PCT.
What?
Because I like to think long and hard before making a snap decision. My business partner Danielle, who's like she's kind of like my invisible business partner. She's like the reason that everything makes sense in the end. She's very organized and very, very driven, and I'm very unorganized and probably driven, but She is the reason that everyone's trail name is spelled correctly. So we have been discussing for years doing a yearbook on the PCT, because hikers that come over from the PCT have been said, hey, we'd like this out there too, because we would like to reconnect. So it's been in the makings for a couple of years, and so Danielle and I got together and we talked through this winter, and we decided that it was time. We want to reconnect hikers after the trail, and that's not specifically the Appalachian Trail. We would like to reconnect hikers after any long distance trail. But in order to do that, we're going to just have to jump. So she booked me a plane ticket, and she said, here's your plane ticket for a month on the PCT. And, worst case scenario, you get a vacation for a month. But I truly believe that these families that are formed on the Appalachian Trail and on the Pacific Crest Trail, and all the other national scenic and historic trails along America, that they form these relationships. And I feel like if they can, after their experience, their hike, they can get back together and maybe actually pull off some of these ideas that they were thinking about while on trail. If the book can do that, then it's worth doing. I'm not a Pacific Crest Trail through hiker. I've never even been out west. But I'm also not an editor or a photographer or a graphics designer or a public speaker. But I'm able to pull it off with a wonderful team and the support of friends and family. So it's kind of she bought me the tickets in January, and about a month ago, I got scared and I pulled out, and I told her, I said, no, I'm not going to go. I'm not going to do it. I can't do it. And she said, well, then just go to the PCT for a vacation and just hike. And I was like, well, there's absolutely no difference in going to PCT and hiking than there is in actually going out there and making a book. So then I went to my go-to excuse, and I said, well, we don't have the money. Like, it takes money to eat. It takes money to travel. These hikes, they're not free. I spend thousands of dollars each year out here trying to do this. And so I said, well, I don't have the money. And then she said, okay, well, why don't you just fly out there and just sit really still and don't eat a lot of food. And
she's trying to get rid of you is what's happening.
Yes. Yeah, so she sent me a text message, and she said, hey, check the email. So I look at the email, and it said, you just received a donation, and it was for $1,000. And all it said was, spend this money on the PCT. And it was from a former PCT hiker that was on the Appalachian Trail, and I'd spent a little bit of time with him. And, he told me, he said, don't ever tell anybody, like, who I am. But he just said, this is something worth doing. And if money is the only thing standing in your way, then here, take this money and go. So all my excuses were out the window. I'm still using the word attempt. I'm going to attempt a PCT Hiker Yearbook. And it's for the same core cause. I want to reconnect hikers after the trail. So I'm heading out there in about a week, and I'm hiking 100 miles right now to get to Lincoln through the Whites and the Mahoosic Notch section. And once I get to Lincoln, I'm going to get on a plane and for the first time ever fly out west and see how far I can push this dream.
Oh, my goodness.
Because I started with nothing, and I still have most of it left.
How exciting.
I love it.
That's fantastic.
Full circle.
So the last thing I wanted to cover, not really cover. So before we head out, one of the things I wanted to do was give a shout out to people. We talked about doing this before. Is of course we invite listeners to give. Is somebody shuffling a deck of cards?
Yes. Sorry.
Are you?
Is it actually a deck of cards?
Are you building something out of Legos? What's going on?
No. I just realized that I had left my gas cap at the gas station, so I am shoving a piece of plastic into my gas thing.
Oh, okay.
All right, normal.
Yeah, as long as you're not shoving an oily rag into your. I don't know.
Nope.
Okay.
Nope.
All right, so. One of the things we mentioned on previous episodes, and usually in our closing credits, we want people to give us 5-star reviews wherever they listen to the show, and I want to give people shout outs who give us good reviews, and I have we've got a few nice reviews, and we've got a couple that are not so nice. And...
Liars.
What's that?
I said liars.
Liars. So, okay, so there's a 5-star review here that I want to read. I want to share with you guys. I'm just going to read this to you. It's on iTunes, and it's titled "Hated It" with an exclamation point. And I'm not going to say who this person is because he should be embarrassed for what he wrote, and you're about to hear. I want to protect his privacy. Don't care for the bouncing around of different hikers in one episode. So right away, that tells me he's not even listening to our show because we don't do that.
He would not enjoy a southbound hike. He really wouldn't. Yeah.
I think what he's referring.
I think your crossover episode with Zach Davis.
That's exactly what he's referring to. Is our crossover episode with Zach Davis, the one that we recorded at Trail Days. I listened to Zach's version of the show, and he took our full. Well, he's the one who recorded it, so he can do whatever he wants. He broke the audio up into little sections. And just for variety's sake, put in other interviews with people he met at Trail Days to kind of capture the whole Trail Days experience. Whereas we just put the whole thing out there uncut and just start to finish. But he says he doesn't care for the bouncing around of different hikers in one episode, and definitely don't care for a group of friends sitting around drinking beer and trying to be funny, yawn, at Trail Days. Thank God for better hiking podcasts. Moving on, exclamation point. And here's the best part. You ready for this? 5 stars.
5 stars.
That's our 5-star review of the week.
Whoa! So, hey, you know what? On my reviews on my Facebook fan page, I have one negative review, and it's great because it's so positive. Because everyone loves the negative. Everyone just loves the negative. That's why you're going over this one negative. But so this guy gave me 3 stars, and he said, "I love the book. I'll probably buy one. I met Odie, and he helped me get a ride to the store and back." And then somebody said, "Well, then why did you give him 3 reviews or 3 stars?" Yeah. And so then the guy, who's an elderly guy, he answered back. He's like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I would have given him 12 stars. What do I do with the stars?"
I don't know how stars work. I need a young person.
So when someone looks at that and says, "Oh, well, here's a negative one," and they read it, and they're like, "Wait a minute, what?"
So where can people go to leave? Where can people go to leave reviews on the thing you do? Oh, you said Facebook. I'm thinking of Facebook. People who want to know more about Odie in general and the Hiker Yearbook. Matthew Odie Norman.
Matthew Odie Norman on Facebook. And follow me, don't friend request me. Because Mark Zuckerberg says I can only have 5,000 friends. But if you hit follow, you could still see me without being a friend, and then you could still private message me and do all that stuff.
And of course, you can learn more about the Hiker Yearbook at hikeryearbook.com. There's no right? It's just hikeryearbook.com.
Right, but because Danielle is a genius, she bought thehikeryearbook.com, hikers with an S yearbook.com, and a couple of others. So if someone were to accidentally put in the hikeryearbook.com, it would go directly to hikeryearbook.com, because that's the way the internet works.
So just roll your face across the keyboard and press enter, and you'll go to Odie's website.
I tell people if they forget the .com, just Google Hiker Yearbook.
There you go. That'll work. Cool, man. Well, I know you're super busy. You're at a hostel right now. It's your turn to get in the shower. I
want to hear a positive review.
Okay. All right. Here's one by Johnny Mann, 5 stars. Enjoy the format! Exclamation point. I find the format of this podcast to be quite refreshing. The presentation of the material is new and fresh, with the guest being the center of the show. Really love it. So let me ask our guest.
That's going to be my next.
Like you were the center of the show this time?
I do. I feel like a star. It's amazing.
Good.
I feel like I'm in the presence of royalty. You two.
Oh, you don't even know who you're talking to. Oh man,
because it's true.
Yep. Well, you can call back anytime you want. I want to hear more about your adventures when you get to the PCT, or after. While the book's in production, or just anytime you want to call, man. I love hanging out with you. It's
awesome.
It's a real treat.
I love you, Gary.
I love you too, man. Megan, thanks for doing all that you do.
All right, John.
When we can hear you, that is. You were great for the first 45 minutes. Are you even there anymore? I
Can
can't
you
even
hear
tell
me
if
Yeah.
is Megan still there.
I'm here.
Oh, there she is. Yeah, okay.
I'm here, and I'm yelling at my phone. You can't hear me, apparently.
Yeah, this outro is going to require some editing.
Okay.
Well, I hope we did good.
Hey. Oh,
Sorry.
all right. You guys are great.
Yeah.
I'll catch you later. I got
All
a
right,
cheeseburger waiting for me in the other room.
All right, bye. Thank you, guys. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Stories from the Trail is a production of thetrek.co. Zach Davis, editor-in-chief. Your hosts are me, Gary Sizer, a.k.a. Green Giant, and Megan Thompson, a.k.a. Voldemort. Our music is by Lee Rosevere. Don't forget to leave us a 5-star review wherever you download the show. And of course, please consider supporting the show by visiting patreon.com/storiesfromthetrail. The show is recorded, mixed, and edited by me, Gary Sizer, here at Blanket Fort Studios, which is just me in my basement with a blanket over my head. Thanks for listening.
Launch the nuclear what? The nuclear? Launch the nuclear
Yes.
nuclear weapons?
Oglethorpe!